A dull Swedish sedan for accountants. That's the reputation the Volvo 164 carried for 50 years. Underneath that flat grille sat something nobody expected. A straight-six engine, built to rival Mercedes, wrapped around safety engineering, decades ahead of its era. Tell us below, did your family ever own one, and did you know what it was really hiding? Volvo built its reputation on caution, not ambition. By the mid-1960s, that reputation had become a cage. Sturdy, sensible cars went to sturdy, sensible buyers, and nothing more was ever expected of either. One decision changed everything. Engineers in Gothenburg began work on a car with no business coming from a brand famous for slow, safe saloons. 6 cylinders, wood trim, and a badge meant to sit beside Mercedes and BMW in any serious driveway. Nobody expected Volvo to make that jump. This was a company known for building 4-cylinder workhorses, not chasing status among executives. A 6-cylinder Volvo wasn't just unusual, it was almost unthinkable. But the engine itself hid a secret nobody at the unveiling caught on to. Volvo stretched an existing 4-cylinder block into a straight 6, called the B30, then dropped it into a lengthened 144 body. A car built on family sedan bones was suddenly competing with machines costing far more and wearing far grander names. Extra power came first. Genuine road presence, disc brakes at every corner, and a cabin finished in leather and real wood followed close behind. Space, comfort, and quiet authority. 3 things nobody had linked to Volvo before that year. A simple business problem sat behind this leap. Export markets across Germany and the United States rewarded badge and prestige as much as reliability, and Volvo needed a car that could compete on status, not just survive a crash test. Building it was one battle. Convincing the world to take it seriously turned out to be the harder war. Critics glanced at the familiar boxy shape and assumed nothing underneath had changed. Reviewers compared it, often unfavorably, to sleeker European rivals wearing racier badges and louder names. That reaction stung the very engineers who'd pushed hardest for this car. They'd built Volvo's most ambitious machine yet, and most buyers still saw a slightly larger version of an ordinary family sedan. 6 cylinders, added length, real comfort. All of it hid behind a shape nobody bothered examining twice. Drivers who actually sat behind the wheel found something entirely different. The straight 6 pulled with a smoothness Volvo had never offered before. Composed, planted, almost dignified, next to the 4-cylinder cars sharing its showroom floor. That gap between reputation and reality would define everything about this car's short, strange life. Not a flashy status symbol, but a serious machine wearing a modest disguise. That became the 164's true identity. Volvo built something meant to rival the establishment, then dressed it in the same square suit as its cheapest models. Almost nobody realized the biggest achievement wasn't sitting under the hood at all. Somewhere inside that unassuming body was an idea about human safety so far ahead of its time that rivals wouldn't catch up for years. That idea would end up shaping Volvo's entire future, and it started right here, quietly, inside a car nobody thought twice about. Volvo spent the 1960s obsessed with one brutal question: what actually happens to a human body during a crash? While rivals chased horsepower numbers and sharper styling, Volvo's own engineers were out studying real wreckage, one accident at a time. Reinforced structures ran around the cabin. Collapsible steering columns absorbed impact before it ever reached the driver. None of this looked impressive inside a showroom. All of it mattered the second something went catastrophically wrong. If this story's caught your attention, hit subscribe now, because what killed this car had nothing to do with its engineering. Few automakers ran dedicated accident investigation teams during that era. Volvo was one of the rare exceptions, sending engineers directly to crash sites to study real wreckage instead of relying only on laboratory tests. That first-hand data shaped how the 164's cabin resisted crumpling, and how its doors held their shape under impact. This wasn't marketing dressed up as safety talk. Volvo applied lessons pulled straight from real collisions to a car most buyers assumed was just another sedan. Standard equipment included the 3-point seatbelt, an invention Volvo had already given away, free to the entire industry years earlier. None of it showed on the outside. And that invisibility would end up costing the 164 more credit than it ever deserved. Protection came without a single visual cue announcing it. No badges boasted about crash structures. No adverts mentioned collapsible columns. Every safeguard lived beneath the surface, hidden inside a shape critics dismissed as forgettable. Families crossing Europe or commuting through brutal American winters felt the benefit of that invisible engineering directly. A crash that might have ended badly in another car often left 164 occupants shaken, bruised, but walking away whole. Picture a family sedan built by a company more concerned with your survival than your admiration. That was the quiet promise behind this car, delivered with zero fanfare, wrapped inside a shape critics kept dismissing as dull. For many older drivers, one specific memory from those years still stings. Parents who chose a 164, specifically because it felt safer than flashier alternatives, remember that decision with real pride decades later. This car never asked to be loved. It asked to be trusted, and for thousands of families, it earned exactly that. Behind every one of these reassurances sat the same engineering team, the same obsession, the same refusal to treat safety as an afterthought. Rivals chased chrome and horsepower figures. Volvo chased data pulled from wreckage nobody else wanted to study. That dedication cost real money few buyers ever noticed. Crash structures, real-world testing, reinforced components. None of it came cheap, and rival automakers simply skipped the expense entirely. Here's what almost nobody expects. Despite the smooth six-cylinder engine, the reinforced cabin, and the quiet luxury inside, one enemy would eventually undo everything Volvo had built. Not a rival brand, not outdated technology. Something far more ordinary and far harder to stop. Rust became the 164's true enemy, and it fought a war nobody at Volvo had prepared for. All that reinforced steel, all that careful crash protection, meant nothing once moisture worked its way beneath the paint. Road salt across brutal winters crept into panel seams, wheel arches, and hidden cavities inside the body. Many 164s never failed mechanically at all. They dissolved instead, piece by piece, long before their engines ever gave out. Owners who trusted Volvo's name felt this betrayal in a very specific way. Here was a car engineered to protect its passengers in a violent collision, yet unable to protect its own structure from something as mundane as winter road spray. The irony wasn't lost on anyone watching their car rot from underneath while the engine kept running flawlessly. Rust didn't just eat away at resale value. It quietly erased much of the surviving population, decade after decade, until genuinely clean examples became rare. Enthusiasts today, searching for a solid 164, often call the hunt exhausting, sometimes nearly impossible depending on the region. Price told a second, equally painful part of this story. Positioned above Volvo's regular lineup, the 164 asked buyers to pay real money for 6 cylinders, added comfort and safety engineering most people never even noticed. Against flashier badges wearing more recognizable names, that price tag became a genuinely hard sell. Picture two buyers standing in a showroom in 1970, weighing a Volvo against a car carrying a more prestigious nameplate at a similar price. Status and badge recognition often won that argument, even when the Volvo offered real engineering advantages underneath its modest shape. That's the deepest irony buried inside this entire story. Arguably safer, arguably more thoughtfully engineered, arguably more advanced than several rivals wearing far grander names. Yet its plain appearance meant most buyers simply walked past it, toward something shinier. History rewarded style over substance, and the 164 paid the price for choosing substance instead. Automotive writers for years remembered flashy competitors, while forgetting the Swedish sedan that had, in many respects, out-engineered them all. Ask anyone who actually owned one, though, and a completely different picture emerges. Drivers who kept their 164s running past the rust, the parts shortages, and years of neglect often describe a car that never stopped feeling solid, composed, and dependable behind the wheel. That loyalty says something real about what this car actually represented. Built to survive a crash, protect a family, and keep running long after flashier rivals were forgotten in scrapyards. Not built to turn heads at a stoplight. Here's the part worth sitting with. A car, this genuinely advanced, spent decades dismissed as boring simply because it refused to announce its own achievements. The 164 never asked for credit. It just did the work nobody else in its class was doing. The Volvo 164 never got the credit it earned. Overlooked and underestimated, it helped shape the safer cars we drive today, and one small design choice inside it changed automotive safety forever. Subscribe now to find out which forgotten classic we uncover next.